And now, ladies and gentlemen, before I tell you any more, I'm going to show you the greatest thing your eyes have ever beheld.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the movies that were at the forefront of a specific genre. These films don't necessarily need to be the absolute first of their kind, but they do need to have been successful or influential enough to codify the trappings of a particular cinematic style.
People lose teeth talking like that. If you want to hang around, you'll be polite.
Number 10. Groundhog Day, time loop movie.
What would you do if you were stuck in one place and every day was exactly the same and nothing that you did mattered?
If 1993 feels like late in the game for a cinematic genre to be coined, that's because it is. That said, Groundhog Day has slowly but surely gained steam with fans over the years. It's basically thought number one that pops into cinephiles' heads when they discuss the nature of a time loop movie.
Do you ever have deja vu, Mrs. Lancaster?
I don't think so, but I could check with the kitchen.
Bill Murray's character Phil Connors may be forced to relive February 2nd over and over again, but later movies such as the Happy Death Day franchise played around with the time loop formula with uniquely fun results of their own.
Oh, hey. You're up.
Silence!
Number 9. Shaft, blaxploitation cinema.
Ready, Shaft?
Bet your lovely self it is. And I'm ready. Can you dig it?
Melvin Van Peebles' independently produced Sweet Sweetback's Badass Song may have been released a few months earlier, but we'd argue that 1971's Shaft better embodied the eventual trappings of the blaxploitation genre. There's still a lot of grit to be found within this adaptation of Ernest Tidyman's series of private detective novels, while star Richard Roundtree wound up becoming an icon of the cinematic day.
I get $50 an hour, plus expenses. No questions asked about how I spend it.
Shaft possesses all of the cool soundtrack cuts and fast action beats that would become part and parcel within blaxploitation flicks. However, it also has plenty to say about masculine behavior and black power during an era when these topics were slowly rising amid the cultural zeitgeist.
And that's what I want to know. Not who, just what.
Warms my black heart to see you so concerned about us minority folks.
Number 8. Scarface, Gangster Pictures.
Listen, little boy. In this business, there's only one law you gotta follow to keep out of trouble. Do it first, do it yourself, and keep on doing it.
The early 1930s were chock full of notable character actors and movie stars who would become synonymous with that era's gangster picture. Edward G. Robinson and James Cagney would rule the roost in outings like Little Caesar and The Public Enemy, respectively. Meanwhile, Paul Muni was a heavyweight player for Warner Brothers back in his day, and his starring role in 1932's Scarface would help further cement his legend.
There's only one thing that gets orders and gives orders, and this is it. That's how I got the south side for you, and that's how I'm going to get the north side for you.
The film was controversial in its day for a perceived glorification of violence. This, together with the pre-code violence found within Scarface, endeared it to generations of movie fans, to the point where it was remade in 1983 with star Al Pacino and director Brian De Palma.
Do you want to play rough? Okay. Say hello to my little friend.
Number 7. Cannibal Holocaust, found footage film.
This happens all the time in the jungle. It's survival of the fittest.
The found footage cycle of horror movies certainly found its greatest prevalence in the aftermath of 1999's The Blair Witch Project. That said, the popular origins of this cinema verite-styled approach to filmmaking can be found much earlier than the late 90s. We're speaking specifically of 1980's Cannibal Holocaust, one of the most controversial films ever made.
It's unbelievable. It's horrible. I can't understand the reason for such cruelty.
Director Ruggero Deodato and screenwriter Gianfranco Clerici crafted a film and a film within a film that wasn't only infamous for its crafted violence, but also the real-life demise of animals on screen. Elsewhere, the understated beauty of the film's score is often at odds with the comparatively visceral set pieces. Cannibal Holocaust is a film of contradictions, where art and exploitation crash in the most memorable fashion.
I wonder who the real cannibals are.
Number 6. It Happened One Night, romantic comedy.
What did you say we're supposed to be doing?
Hitchhiking.
Oh. Well, you've given me a very good example of the hiking. Where does the hitching come in?
The study of cinema can also double as a study of society itself. a sociological journey where films such as 1934's It Happened One Night influence our daily interactions. That's because this film was a formidable influence on the screwball romantic comedy genre, to the point where many of its tropes continue to be parodied today. Ever seen a movie where a couple erects a partition between their beds in order to create an illusion of privacy? This comes from It Happened One Night.
That, I suppose, makes everything quite all right.
Well, this?
The film also influenced fashion choices of the day, specifically during a scene where star Clark Gable disrobes to reveal a lack of undershirt. All this and more helped make It Happened One Night strike a serious chord with moviegoers.
Hitchhiking down the highway of love on a honeymoon. Hitchhiking down.
Number 5. Blade Runner, Cyberpunk.
Quite an experience to live in fear, isn't it?
There's no denying the influence 1927's Metropolis had upon the subculture of cyberpunk, as well as movies like 1982's Blade Runner. That said, it's probably this latter film from director Ridley Scott that's largely seen as the embryo from which cyberpunk cinema was born.
I need the old Blade Runner. I need your magic.
So many conventions of visual tropes of the genre are present here, from a lived-in, sprawling world to the dystopian energy of the action. Harrison Ford's character Rick Deckard feels like a man, or is that replicant, out of time. A hard-boiled badass that's living within a chaotic future. Anything feels as if it can happen as a result of this chaos, and it's Blade Runner that lives on in our imaginations rent-free forever.
Memories. You're talking about memories.
Number 4. King Kong, giant monster movie.
Ladies and gentlemen, look at Kong, the eighth wonder of the world.
It may be true that old King Kong wasn't the first actual monster on screen, since German expressionist films like Nosferatu, The Golem, and The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari had already introduced vampires, somnambulists, and more to the world. King Kong was something more, however, and something special.
Holy mackerel, what a show!
This film, directed by Marion C. Cooper and Ernest B. Schudsack, changed the game back in 1933, particularly due to the groundbreaking special effects work of Willis O'Brien. The results here are frankly incredible, going on to influence anyone and everyone who would create a giant monster movie. The stop motion, matte paintings, and rear projection created a world unlike any other, and gave rise to an entire kaiju industry in its wake.
Why, in a few months it'll be up in lights on Broadway. Kong, the eighth wonder of the world!
Number 3. Night of the Living Dead, modern zombie movie.
They're coming to get you, Barbara.
The atomic age of irradiated beasts essentially received its death knell once George A. Romero and crew came knocking with 1968's Night of the Living Dead. This was real horror, with an edge, bite, and legitimate stakes.
I got so afraid. I ran.
The public's idea of a zombie, or ghoul as they're referred to in the film, also received an upgrade with Night of the Living Dead, distancing itself from the origins of Haitian voodoo. Romero's zombie movie also doubled as a siege film, with marauding hordes of the undead attacking a house where survivors are held up, fighting for their lives. Does this plot sound familiar? That's because Night of the Living Dead basically did everything before its imitators could do anything.
We may not enjoy living together, but dying together isn't going to solve anything.
Number 2. The Maltese Falcon, film noir.
If you lose a son, it's possible to get another. There's only one Maltese Falcon.
It's a little difficult to nail down what's the definitive example of film noir, but 1941's The Maltese Falcon certainly comes close. It's actually a remake of a pre-code version of author Dashiell Hammett's source novel. Yet it's the actual implementation of the code that would go on to influence the noirish tropes of The Maltese Falcon.
What do you want me to do, learn to stutter? Dundee take you down to the station? How long do they work on you?
This is because film noir had to jump around a lot of code-implemented hoops concerning the on-screen depictions of sexuality and violence. So, we got hard-boiled dicks, dastardly dames, double crosses, and dirty deeds done in the secrecy of shadow. The Maltese Falcon also helped popularize the MacGuffin plot device, since the titular Falcon is only there to get other wheels of the plot rolling.
What is it?
The, stuff that dreams are made of.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. Number 1. Psycho, slasher flick.
We all go a little mad sometimes. Haven't you?
There were 2 British films released in 1960 that helped mold what would eventually become the slasher genre. Michael Powell's Peeping Tom may be less known, but is almost certainly the more lurid and psychosexual of the two. Meanwhile, Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho inhabits the more monstrous machinations of the mind with its tragically tortured antagonist Norman Bates.
You know, I think I must have one of those faces you just can't help believing.
Both films don't possess high body counts, yet their influence is incalculable against the glut of slasher imitators that would rise in the wake of 1970s shockers like Black Christmas and Halloween. Add to all of this the influence of stylish Italian murder mysteries known as gialli, and you have all of the ingredients for a modern slasher stew. Can you point to any other film that kickstarted a genre? Let us know in the comments.
You have offended my family, and you have offended the Shaolin Temple.
Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from WatchMojo, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.